There you go, man. We can always have a second chance at things. Maybe.
This is In My Opinion with Ray Dosky and NFL legend Bernard Pollard.
That's right. In my opinion, it's back to that again. We had some technical difficulties, but we're going to get started going again. We're back. We're going to continue this conversation we had. Sorry for the little thing there, but I guess that's live streaming for you. Myself's here, Ray Dosky. Alongside with the boys is BP. BP, baby. Former NFL, former safety. Talking all things Week 5. We're going to recap Week 5. We're going to be talking a little bit about some hot topics of quick hits we have. We were a little bit into the whole Dan Campbell, if he's the answer up in Motor City. We're going to talk a little bit about concussions, why we're seeing so many in the NFL. As well as we're going to start talking about some matchups we like. Some are probably more or less more favorable than others, as you will. But before we get started, what's up, BP, man? What's going on, buddy? As we do this round two.
Doing this again. But before everything cut off, we were talking about the safe call, for the Detroit Lions. And, just to be able to have, something just to get the defense going, just settle down. Something that they know, something that they understand. That can get them, going again. That can ignite something instead of going cover zero with Aaron Glenn. Something that he's been doing or fire zone blitzes. We just gotta they gotta tighten that thing up. I think when you look at this, when you look at what's going on, they get a chance to come back and play in Week 5, and they have a team that's 1-3 as well. And so playing this team that's 1-3. I think they got a good chance at winning. They got a young guy, I think a rookie quarterback playing, and so they should win this game. So I'm hoping Coach Campbell can get this thing turned around in Week 5.
When you look at this Detroit Lions team, you think to yourself, you know what? They have all the components to be, especially in the NFC, to be competitive.
Yes.
Do they not?
Yeah. I mean, most definitely. I think they got all the components. I mean, once again, when you're averaging 35 points a game, I think that is humongous. All our defense got to do is hold you to 30.
Yeah.
If we can hold you to 30 and not give up big plays, because I think big plays is the biggest part, the biggest thing for them. And when you're in cover zero situations, you cannot make mistakes. And I think, when you look at this defense, they sometimes they're, everybody's inside leverage except for one guy. And then the quarterback find that one guy that's not inside leverage, and he end up giving his inside leverage away. So it's looking back at the game in Week 3, if I'm not mistaken, gave up a 45-yard play. But that's hard on a defense when you have 65 yards of field behind you and you're playing cover zero where you can't make a mistake and you have nobody protecting you deep. But yeah, they gotta fix it. And if somebody's the fall guy, it's gonna be Aaron. It's gonna be Aaron Glenn, simply because offensively they're doing everything they need to do to score points. What we have to do is make a change defensively, and that comes with play calls. That's not players. We don't need to make a change with players. We need to make a change with the play calls. So you got to go to the play caller, and that's Aaron Glenn.
Speaking of fixing, the NFL's got some work to do, does it not? One of the topics that you and I have gone back and forth on text is the amount of concussions that we've seen in the NFL this upcoming season, right? Mm-hmm. It seemed like it was a pattern, and we all know that concussions was always an issue in the NFL. And it feels like the NFL is trying to do what it can to kind of limit the concussions, whether it be, in terms of reviewing plays, how hits are made, targeting, if you will. I mean, if you look in terms of what's going on, especially that frightening hit that led to Tua just 2 weeks ago. Yeah. It wasn't even a hit. It was more or less like a sack where he hit his head against the concrete, the grass. It was a game changer. Right. And then what do we see following that? You see the quarterback for the backup quarterback.
Yeah,
Hoyer. He was actually out with a concussion. Then we had Zappi playing for the Patriots, which, was just crazy. They were able to push the Packers to the brink. And then soon after that, Thursday night, Hines.
Yeah, Hines. Yeah.
And he was concussed. He was gone.
Yeah.
You being a former player, how does this sit with you? What do you feel like the NFL is missing here in terms of, because they made changes to this in 2011. It was due to that Colt McCoy hit that happened, and there was no concussion protocol that he went through. Right. He immediately went back into the game, which led to all this, the revisions, if you will, in terms of what the concussion protocol or examination should look like?
Look, I tell people all the time, this is a violent game, right? I mean, we can't, you wear helmets, you wear shoulder pads, you wear pads for a reason. You have to lift weights, you have to keep your body going for a reason. Not only are you taking hits from people, but you're taking hits from probably the best athletes in the world at this sport.
Right.
And then when you take the hits from the people, you take a hit from the ground.
Right.
Because that's where you're landing. So football is a violent sport. There's no way we can get rid of, you can make the safest of the safest helmets. It's not going to help. You can make the safest of the safest shoulder pads. It's not going to help. You can make the safest of the safest thigh pads, knee pads, all this other stuff. You can have the most smartest cleats on. It's not going to help. You're still going to trip. You're still going to twist ankles. You can have ankle tape. Bad things are still going to happen. You're still going to break an ankle. This is what this game is. This is a violent game. Warriors play this game. And, and we've talked about this as far as the concussion protocol. What is protocol? You know what I mean? Like, what, can you count to 10? Do you remember what happened? I think, the obvious is, a player is, fencer pose. So you've seen it with Tua. We saw it with Nyheim Hines on Thursday, which before he hit the ground, his fingers were already, clenched up and tightened up. So it's just one of those things. I think that's the obvious where we know. But, when with players, we can talk about safety and everything else. This game, it isn't safe. And that's why fans love it. Who can get the biggest, fastest, stronger, quickest guy out of the draft? Who looks good coming out of a break? Who looks good running straight line speed? Who looks good doing whatever? Who looks good throwing a football? That's what this game is. So it's, we can, do whatever we can. I think this is where in the CBA, I was a part of the PA. I was one of the guys on the team that was a part of the PA. I think the PA, I truly believe the PA is trying to do everything they can, but I say for me as a retired player now, because when I was playing, and we talked about this, I think it was last week, where, you people heard Rodney Harrison talking about, well, you guys got to take care of yourself. Like you guys, you can't go back in. Well, that's easy to say from the outside looking in, because, when you were a Warrior and playing in this game, you were going back in. Guys did anything they could to go back in. I played with 6 broken ribs. I've only had one concussion, playing football, and that was in college.
Which is wild to me, by the way, because of how much of a hitter you were.
Yeah,
and Rodney Harrison should know that as well. He was a hitter himself.
Exactly. So it's just, when you're telling these Warriors in the moment, don't go back in. No, they're trying to win. We as athletes have been conditioned to, if you're in the training room, you can't help us. That's a bad thing. When you're in the training room, it's a bad thing. When you're on the sideline, it's a bad thing. That's just a conditioning in our head. So now we we got to play. We want to play. We want to go. And whatever we can do, and then you saw Nyheim Hines on Thursday night, he was doing everything he could to try to walk, but them legs was noodles. And, and so I'm one to where I don't, when everybody get up in arms, I like what they're doing right now. With they got people stopping the game to make sure guys they don't go back in. That is fantastic, because at the end of the day, we have to be honest with ourselves.
Right.
This is a long-term thing. So guys are going to feel this thing later in life. A lot of these young boys run around at 22, 23, 24 years old. They're not going to feel that. They're going to get right up the next day and feel fine. You know what I mean? But, they're going to feel it at 38, 39, 40, 45. And so this is where I think, for the PA and for the players that are advocating for certain things, we don't need to be advocating for players are already getting record money. They're getting buku money right now. We need to be advocating for lifetime insurance. If you're a vested guy in this league and you're doing everything, we need lifetime insurance. I don't think fans really understand. I don't think players that are playing right now really understand, because we talked about it before. The makeup of a football team is a 1-year contract, maybe $1.5 million, $2 million, if that. That's the makeup. That's the majority of football teams for contracts $7 to $6 million or less. All this $240 million contract, how many years? That's one a team. Denver Broncos, one. That's one. You don't have that. That's the minority. The majority of the majority of a football team is $6-7 million or less. So these guys don't understand, like, especially when you keep living and you fall in love and you have families and you having kids and things of that nature. That insurance is a beast. I'm 8 years retired, and insurance cuts off at 7 years. So you have got to go find your own insurance, and insurance isn't cheap.
Definitely not.
I think this is where a lot of the fans are saying, like, yo, like, welcome to the real world, because that's some real world stuff. Because we've had Cigna, we've been okay. When we want to go to the doctor, I ain't never had to go to a doctor. The team doctor was my doctor. If we had a problem, we went right to them.
You had your own personal physician,
right.
Yeah.
So, it's just, things, guys, in today, they don't, playing right now, current players don't understand what they're going to have to deal with later. So when it comes down to the whole concussion things, that's going to happen. Concussions right now is just what we're hearing about. That's the injury of the year right now. A year or two ago was Achilles popping. I finished my career with an Achilles burst. My Achilles shredded. So that was, ACLs. And these injuries, we can't pick and choose. You can't play this game scared, but at the same time, you got to understand. That's why when I went into the game, I knew it was either me or them. And if it was me, okay. But if it was them, cool. Because when it's all said and done, what they're going to do at the end of the day, Ray? When it's all said and done, when you get hurt, they're going to cart you off, assist you, or you going to walk off, and the game going to still go on. They're about money. They understand this thing. They're about money. So, I like the fact that they're trying to do things to make sure, the player safety and everything is cool and all this and all of that. Like, but once again, concussion protocol, what is it? I like what they're doing now, but they're not really. They're trying to explain now. They're trying to show the fans and the players, like, okay, yo, we're bringing all these people in. We're looking at it on screens. We're going to, if it doesn't look right, if we see you fall a certain way, you're not going back in the game. It should have been like that in the first place, but it wasn't. But they're trying to right their wrongs. I'll give them that. They're trying to right their wrongs. But, for me, I need to look at, okay, wait, we need to talk about lifetime insurance.
Yeah, definitely, because you look at that in terms of being a former player, quality of life plays a factor here.
Yep.
And that's where it comes down to.
Yes, sir.
Because of just how you spoke about how violent this game is. And it just seems like it's between the NFL and the NFLPA, it seems like they're trying to find that language that will mitigate or limit the issues with the concussion protocol, if you will.
Right.
Has it enhanced or has it built from its inception back in 2011? Possibly. Right. But you're still seeing these injuries, and you just feel like, what does that test look like? Right. Is it 2 minutes? Is it 5 minutes? Am I doing this? Putting two fingers up? Am I, hey, well, do you know where you're at? Do you know your last name? Do you know where you're born? Do you remember what have you?
Right.
Or is it much more than that?
Yeah. It's crazy. And I keep going back to this for everybody that this stuff is going to happen. And we're going to see concussions tomorrow. And for the notable concussions that we've already heard about, there's been more guys knocked out. I watched a guy getting knocked smooth out, and he was able to gather himself and stay on the ground, gather himself, and then get up. He was smooth out. And that was just week 4. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, so this stuff is going to happen. Some guys are going to be able to hide it. Some guys are going to try to think they can get up. When you see and feel something ain't right, your equilibrium is off. That trauma already happened. Sit your butt down. Sit down.
And that's what it seems like it's a problem, because players will always try to push the play.
Yeah.
And sometimes you'll have coaches that might intervene, and it's like, they'll apply pressure to players and doctors to play. But sometimes it seems that players need to use their own voice and say, hey, you know what? I'm not good.
Right. And it's hard. That's hard, right?
Yeah.
That's hard when you're conditioned to, hey, I got to do what I can to stay on this football field and help the football team. That's hard. It really is. And so, it's you just gotta find it. That's just what it is. We're going to deal with this until
It's not going anywhere.
it ain't going nowhere.
It's not going to us. You know, it's been here since what the 70s, 80s, and it's magnified. And the NFL has tried to do, like we said earlier, to limit this, to get ahead of this, and it just seems like you can't.
Right.
You're already behind the 8 ball right now.
Stuff, yeah.
You know, and so now what's the NFL trying to do? They're trying to play catch up.
They are. But let's fix that lifetime insurance because they can do it. They got
That's a good start. I think that's a good start. I mean, I think that if you ask any NFL player, especially a retired player, they probably feel the same sentiment as you, honestly.
Oh, yeah. Once again, I look at so
Yeah.
many retired players that are struggling, GoFundMe's up and everything else to get money to have the surgeries and to do things, different things. Like I can't call 911. Mm-hmm. I have to have my own insurance, but then the NFL still does some things where they still do some things where I have to call them to get, if I got like a hip or, I thought, and we're going to get personal. I thought I had a hernia and I wanted to go get that checked out. I had to call them to make sure it was okay for me to go get it checked out. I was like, can't call 911, no emergency. I got to call somebody with the NFL for them to take a couple days to set me up an appointment. I'm like, yo, are you serious? It's crazy, bro.
That's the protocol?
Bro, fans don't know a lot. They don't know a lot.
Well, that's why we got this podcast going, so we can educate the fans to let them know what's going on behind the scenes.
I'm gonna fill y'all in on
that.
I'm gonna fill you in on that.
And he sure will, too. We all know that. But speaking of filling in, Steelers. There's a new era, baby.
Yeah.
His name is Kenny Pickett.
I like it.
Now, when you look at the Steelers team, it found itself like they were going to be excited about this upcoming season. Many felt like that Trubisky was going to be the guy to give, that starting. He did get the starting role this upcoming season, going through training camp as named the number 1 starter. Kenny Pickett, a first round. Well, I think he was the only first round quarterback drafted in this past draft. But they're like, you know what? He's talented. He's got possible factor, if you will,
right,
applied to him, but just needed time. So they thought Mitchell Trubisky, which many believe he's also a former number 1, second pick in the NFL, comes in. You got you have an offense here, and you just cannot sustain that starting role. Right. Now the Steelers are staring at 1-3, which is probably one of their worst ever starts ever. I mean, you're talking about a Mike Tomlin, who you're a fan of. You love Mike Tomlin. I love Mike Tomlin too because he's no nonsense.
Right.
He just tells you how it is, and he doesn't have time for the silliness of it all. He just wants to get past it all.
Right.
Comes in. Now he's 16 straight seasons, I believe it is, in terms of having a winning record. I mean, they've had 3 coaches ever?
That says a lot.
That says a ton. And you look at what
people take that for granted.
Oh yeah, you're talking to nations of the I can't even say it. I'm just gonna move forward. But yes, a Washington fan who knows all about misery in terms of trying to look for consistency, in terms of a leadership, if you will. But when you look at this team, you feel like, is history going to repeat itself? Maddox happened in what year? That's right, in 2004. And who took his reins from when he wasn't doing so well? Named by the name of Ben Roethlisberger. Here we are, now 2022. And it seems like now we had the same situation. You can add Maddox. You could be more or less like Mitchell Trubisky, and you have Kenny Pickett, might be the next Ben Roethlisberger in Pittsburgh. Do you like the move?
I think that, for me, right, I thought the Steelers should have did this week 1. Give him the reps, let him go through our preseason, take a majority of the reps in the preseason games, and get him ready to go. If we're going to lose games, let's lose them with our rookie gaining experience. I'm a believer. I'm a believer in especially at the quarterback position. Let them boys go. When you got and nothing against Mitchell Trubisky, nothing against him at all.
Right.
But I mean, he's not that guy. He is who he is. He's shown us who he is. He's not QB1. He's not. So if we're going to lose games, let's lose them with our rookie getting reps because he's our future. And I understand the mindset that they had and the route they wanted to take, but at the same time, I'm just looking like, we can rely on this run game, rely on the play action to help us, to assist us. We may have to switch a couple things up as far as coaches, but it's going to be okay because we're doing it for the betterment of the football team, but then also to put our quarterback, our future, in the right position. And so, I'm happy that they did it. He's going to have to learn. He's going to have to learn how to, go into a week and prepare his preparation, his film study. He's going to have to learn and understand how to communicate with the media at the NFL level. We understand he's done this at the collegiate level, but the NFL level is just so different. The way that the media treats you, the way that they talk to you, and obviously social media is crazy. So who you're letting in and out, of your life, and then what are you letting, with your eyes, what you're looking at with your eyes, what you're hearing, what you listening to with your ears. He's going to have to pick and choose what he's going to take in. I think he is a talented player. They drafted him first round, so they're going to have to let him go. And I see this, they're facing, as we've already been talking, that injury bug. That injury bug has hit them, with a couple players. But they're going to have to keep this thing rolling, rely on the run game. He's got to rely on the run game, and he's got to let it. I think Keyshawn Johnson talked about letting it come to him. Let the game come to him. Don't go out and force nothing. You are on the football team. You are in a division where y'all are going to run the football. Enjoy that. Enjoy not having to drop back and throw the ball 55 times a game. Enjoy throwing the ball maybe 22 times. He needs to enjoy that. Don't try to make anything, more than what it is. Take your shots when you want to take them. When you got a team down, do what you need to do, but don't push it. Let this thing come to you, and a couple of the interceptions I saw, they were late throws, but they touched this guy's hands and they were tipped, but he's got to put himself, like I said, he got a week of preparation. They're going to get ready to play this game, and he's got to go. And I think he's going to be in good hands. I really do.
So let me ask you this. So fans up in Steeler Nation, who are probably one of the most loyalist of fan bases to any team, right, if you think about the NFL.
I think they got one of the top fan bases in the
Absolutely.
league.
So they've been probably pumping their fists, hoping that, hey, can we get new life in here? Can we get a savior? Because they knew before the season started that many probably believed that Mitchell Trubisky was not the guy. Much like yourself saying he should start week one. Should have probably been played through the training camp. Give this guy his chance. Now you have this new life that's pumped in. Now it feels like the fans have like this adrenaline, like the future is going to start now. If you're the fan base, how excited would you be if you see a hometown kid
right
playing for the hometown team,
right,
to hopefully save the season, if you will, after a disastrous start?
Right. I mean, they're 1-3. If you expect him to come in and be Superman, don't.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing the fan base need to do is just rally behind him. And he's going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
Rookies get you beat. That's what it is. I mean, he doesn't have the experience. He doesn't know. He doesn't know. So he's got to continue to learn every single time he goes out of there. But that's on the offensive coordinator job to put him in good situations. And I think the best situations, playing off the play action, Najee Harris, Warren, they're going to have to open this thing up for him to, the run game so that he can work off the play action. And I think, taking their play action deep shots, that's going to come. But giving him 1-2 reads, and they need to be off play action. Putting him in situations, him trying to let him throw the ball all day, every day, that's going to put him in second, third, and longs. And you don't want to see a rookie quarterback at that in that type of situation. So I think the fan base needs to understand he's still a rookie. He's going to get us beat, especially if we find ourselves trying to make him a savior. We don't need to make him that. He's not that. He's not Roethlisberger. Don't make him that. He's not anybody else that has played there. He is Kenny Pickett, who's a rookie who is still trying to get an understanding of what the NFL is about. Just rally behind him, let him play ball, and know and understand he's going to throw probably 12 to 15 more interceptions this year.
Absolutely. And so I'm excited to see what he can do. I know that it's probably going to pump a lot of life into the Steeler fans there.
Oh, you about to say Ravens.
I was about to say Ravens. I know. Oh, just don't. Hey, easy. I know. Let's switch gears from one team that started new quarterbacks. Two teams actually got new quarterbacks in the offseason. And let's talk about, Thursday night. Let's talk about this Colts, Broncos, whatever you want to call it. game of misery. It seems like
Worst game.
I think that if you talk to some fans, they're probably looking for like counseling. Probably losing Prime's probably what is it, Amazon's probably losing some subscriptions right now because they're like, what is this? Fans leaving before overtime because we can't watch this.
Right.
As I watched these two teams play one another, one thing came to my head. Please, no more Bronco games on prime time. Let's just leave that alone for now. It was probably by far one of the two, probably the second worst game I've seen this year, outside of the Broncos 49ers game that happened several weeks back.
Right.
But one thing that really did come to my head is the fact that just because you get a franchise quarterback, it doesn't equate to a quick fix. Now think about that. For every Matthew Stafford, Tom Brady, who's delivered Super Bowls,
Right.
you get your Carson Wentz, not that great. You've got Baker Mayfield starting with new teams. You've got Matt Ryan. You've got Russell Wilson. Is there some truth to that, you think? Because it comes back to saying, like, sometimes you're just not one quarterback away from winning the Super Bowl.
Right. Look, Hackett is awful.
Yeah.
He's awful.
He can't hack it, can he?
Hackett is terrible. When I look at this football team for the Denver Broncos, he is the consistent. He is the consistent that I see. He's consistently bad. Clock management, play calling. I mean, it's terrible. Now, this game was atrocious. Watching this football game, I mean, when I looked at the passing yards for both quarterbacks, I was like, dang, that was like, I remember me and my son went to watch LeBron play one year, and I looked up at the scoreboard, and I saw LeBron had 36, and I was like, I didn't even know he had 36. For Matt Ryan to have 251 and Russell Wilson to had 274, I was like, yo, I didn't even think about that because the game was so bad. But, as far as Russell was off, he was off. I mean, you can't defend him. He was off all day. You see just as far as him and the receivers are off. The running backs, the running backs actually, they did what they needed to do as far as running the football. The offensive line, they weren't consistent as far as pushing. But the receivers, drops. I saw drops. I saw routes where, you saw the one route where Sutton and number 12 was right in the same spot, and Sutton ended up catching it.
Yeah.
So that tells me right there, why do route distribution and everything else, why do we have two guys running in the same spot? Mm-hmm. So, when I look at this football team, I look at Hackett. You have got to, as we were talking about with Dan Campbell and the Detroit Lions, the pieces are there in Denver. We can't deny that. The pieces are in Denver, offensively and defensively. They're there. But when you look at Hackett, I mean, from week 1 to week 5, he's been consistently bad. And I don't like the play calling. I don't like the structures of the structure of the play design. Like, I'm just trying to understand how all this is coming. And when you let the coaches of a football team, if you let them stick around, they're going to take it from you. Well, you saw that with Kansas City. You keep making mistakes, the coach are going to take advantage of it, and you're going to give them life. And the Broncos found out for some reason, the film they watched when they watched Indianapolis and Kansas City, they didn't understand Kansas City was a better football team, but Kansas City made mistakes, allowed them to keep coming around, allowed them to stay around, stick around, and they won that football game. And it's the same thing that happened with them. Why you didn't choose to run the football, going down to the 2-minute warning, and you want to just throw the ball? That's all Hackett. That's Hackett. Bro, if you're supposed to be this offensive-minded coach and you want to go run, that got me down here. The run got you down there. So you got 3 points in the book already. You got it on the scoreboard already. And then you choose to throw a ball with a quarterback that you couldn't obviously see wasn't performing well that night. Throw a ball late. That wasn't the only ball he threw late. The ball to Jerry Jeudy where the Colts were in cover 2, I think it was in the third quarter, if I'm not mistaken. He threw a ball to Jerry Jeudy. Jerry Jeudy had a middle linebacker on him. Playing cover 2, Tampa 2, running down the middle of the football field. That ball was late. Russell Wilson was late all game long. all game long. And I mean, as a coach, you are to see that. You are to be able to say, you know what? I'm not going to put him in a situation because I see he's not doing well. And then he went in the blue tent after taking a hit after throwing a pick. And you still put him. I literally tweeted, because I don't do no cussing, y'all. But I said Russell walked out of that tent like, hey, backup quarterback, sit down. I'm about to finish effing this thing up, and that's exactly what he did. And now, Russell is. I believe it's not. We can look at this year all we want to. Russell didn't get to 240 and 245, 250 million from this year. He got it from what he's done. He deserved it.
The body of work that he has.
His body of work. So a lot of people have been just dogging him and talking about him and all this other stuff. His body of work is really freaking good. You have a lot of people, all these gurus, offensive gurus talking this and that. Like, his body of work is better than all of y'all.
So you don't think it's a bad fit?
No.
It all goes down to the head coach.
It's the head coach.
Call.
We talked about it. I think it was after week 1 or week 2, right?
Yeah.
Like, what are they doing in practice?
Yeah.
Like, what does the practice periods look like? This team has come out flat. They were at home and flat. Literally at home, flat. The defense showed up and played ball, and they can do so much. I mean, freaking A. Both quarterbacks combined, I think, got sacked for 10 times. They threw 4 interceptions between each other. Mm-hmm. Like, freaking A.
Right.
But Matt Ryan found a way to will his team and to get a win. But for me, I look at this Indianapolis Coach Frank looks terrible. He looked like he on a hot seat. When they zoomed that cat, I was like, yo, Coach look like he's going through it. But this is a team where they're winning ugly football games. But more importantly, I think this is, you look at both these teams, the Colts they're just trying to figure it out. Mm-hmm. Against the Titans, they had Naheem Hines at the slot. Taylor in the backfield. Obviously, they lose Taylor. Now Naheem Hines is in the backfield, and they changed the as far as the way they wanted to run offense, and it just I'm like, dude, it was just ugly. The offensive line being shuffled around, Matt Ryan getting slapped. I felt bad for Matt. I'm like, dude, you left Atlanta where you was getting tattooed and came here to get more tattoos. It's just
he was definitely getting that
right, and so it was just an ugly overall game. But then you got a team, like I said, with Denver. I think it's probably one of the most talented teams put together as far as rosters on paper. And they're finding a way to come in here and make games closer than what they should be.
Yeah.
And when you got a team like the Indianapolis Colts that's going to scrap, they're not really that good. I mean, they're still trying to figure it out. But freaking A, when you let a team like that stick around, they gonna take it from you. And they did.
And I'm not surprised that the fans left early. There's a lot of work.
I'm not surprised either.
Yeah, I would have left myself. I actually was going to change. I actually changed the channel when I was done. I was like, I'm not going to go through the overtime. Yeah, I mean, it was a clamoring game, but for all the wrong reasons in terms of that kept you engaged. But in terms of there's a lot of work that Denver has to do, and there's some work that the Colts have. Of course, they're dealing with offensive line issues, which is crazy because they were one of the best in the league last year.
Right.
But in terms of teams that are looking for a win, let's transition to week 5 now.
Yeah, week 5.
The Titans and my team from the nation's capital. Titans heading up to Nashville, to D.C. or Landover, Maryland. I never understood that. And they're going in there with a lot of players missing. We talked about this beforehand. Yeah. No Bud Dupree. Mm-hmm. No Treylon Burks. He's probably out for who knows how long. Yeah. No Zach Cunningham. Now, Washington on the other side, they're going to be missing some offensive line players. Jahan Dotson, their number 1 overall pick this year. He's out with a hamstring injury as well. Yeah. When I look at this game and I see the Titans, you see Derrick Henry starting to find his way now. Yeah. Seems like they're starting to run the ball a little bit. Taylor Lewan, who actually just had surgery this past week on his knee, he's supposed to make some announcement about what he's going to probably do, later on about if he's going to come back or not. Right. He had something on his podcast. And you look at this team, Derrick Henry just started rolling. I mean, he started to get really out there. I mean, it looked like he was old Derrick Henry just last week when he was off, season high 114 yards. First game this year that he's broke over 100 yards. Right. And you look at this Titans team, they should win this team. They should win against this Washington team who's looking for a desperate win. And I think Washington's going to win because I feel like the Titans always play down to their competition, even though I know the Titans are a better team.
this is another thing, another team that I look at. Right, the Washington Commanders, they're struggling, and it's just like when you start, like Carson Wentz. I mean, I watched him
struggling. 25th offensive, ranked.
Look, Carson Wentz can't block and throw.
No, it's not on Carson Wentz.
I was about to say Carson, his offensive line is terrible.
Yeah,
I mean they awful. I mean, so Carson Wentz is actually having a decent. He was having a decent year. I look at this game, and I mean the Tennessee Titans. They're going to have to get on. They're going to have to rely heavily on Derrick Henry. With Burks being out, as we've talked about before, the passing threats. Where are the passing threats for the Tennessee Titans? You know what I mean? Like
there's one guy.
I mean, we got Robert Woods, but
who you love the fact that they're starting to get him involved in the offense.
They're moving him around, but as these guys, I mean, we talked about the injuries and everything. Traylon Burks is out, so like what you're gonna have when
Josh Gordon's coming.
All right.
Josh Gordon's coming.
That cat got more. He got more lives than a cat. I'm like, man, how many opportunities he gonna get? But I mean, he's a phenomenal. For him to still be at it, Ray, that says a lot. But at the end of the day, I'm just like, okay, what does that look like for them? They bring Hilliard in. That's an obvious. Hey, that's a passing threat. So that's an alert for the defense. But I think I agree. I agree with you. I think Washington wins this game. I really do. I think Washington wins this game. Simply because I have no doubt that Derrick Henry he'll run well. I think they'll use him in a screen game out the backfield. Robert Woods he'll get his touches. But I just don't trust that 13 receptions, 167 yards, and 1 touchdown to play against the Washington Commanders, freaking A. They've been beat up. I think when I look at this defense, I mean, Jeffrey Simmons is going to do some things up the middle. They're going to get some rush.
He's going to eat.
Well, I mean, as he should with the banged up line. But, I would have to be, they got to be crazy to know, especially after week 4, we got to get this ball out of our quarterback's hand quicker. And if they do that, I don't trust the Tennessee Titans secondary. And we've talked about that before. I just don't. I don't trust these boys. I don't. To me, they're the ones that are the weakest link on this team. That group, that unit is the weakest link on this team. So even if they are winning, I think Washington throw their way back into this game. And you're going to see guys running wide open. So I think this is a game where Washington Commanders will win it. And Carson Wentz is going to throw for 300 plus. I really believe that.
Then you've one of the players that's coming back this week is Brian Robinson.
Running back, yeah. So that's going to be a good thing. That's going to excite some fans because that story alone, you know what I mean? We don't know all the details, but I think that's a story where the fans are going to be excited about that just to be able to see this guy come back in and I hope nothing but the best for him because he's gonna have his hands full with that D line because they're gonna be coming. Because
if you look in terms of what he's gonna do, we don't know how much Washington's gonna play him because you got Brian Robinson starting Sunday against the Titans and they got a short week. They play the Bears on Thursday Night Football. Yeah. We don't know 4 weeks out, no training camp due to Bailey got shot. Yeah, towards I think it was the last preseason game due to an attempt robbery. Thankfully for him, no ligament damage, but we'll see what happens there. But going from let's transition from one team that's really struggling to another, and let's talk about this not the Cowboys, because the Cowboys have been lights out fire. Is the LA Rams?
The Rams. I mean, when you look at this. I look at this game, Ray, and
I'm going to start finding out how you look at these games.
Hey, I think the Rams win this game.
They better.
I think everybody look. Cooper Rush has done some really good things, and as I told people, a lot of people talking about some quarterback controversy and everything else in Dallas. Cooper Rush is a backup quarterback. I mean, and I don't say that to be mean. I don't say that to be any kind of way. But Cooper Rush is the backup quarterback. You know, when you look at this game that they just played, right? Cooper Rush threw 2 picks that were called back, almost a third and a fourth. He's making some mistakes. He made a lot of mistakes in this last game, but I mean, they played the Commanders, and the Commanders picked him off. They had his back in the wall, but they obviously made some major mistakes. I think you're dealing with a better secondary with the Rams. I think you're dealing with better interior play from the Rams. I think you have better linebacker play from the Rams. So I see, yes, the Dallas Cowboys are on fire. They are. But I look at this team, and they're, offensively they have some weapons, and guys are kind of getting their legs under themselves. They're doing some good things. But for the Dallas Cowboys, they're going to do what they do. But I think this is a game where Cooper Rush kind of takes a step back, and I think everybody kind of sees, okay, this is why you back up Dak.
Which is not fun. It's not surprising that the Rams are actually favored by, I think it's a little over 6 points against this Cowboys defense. But the Cowboys have yet to give up 20 points a game. They're averaging out defensively 10 points a game.
Right.
I think they're deeper and a better coach team this side of probably San Francisco. I mean, San Francisco is probably the number one defensive unit. I think Cowboys are up there as well.
Right.
But in terms of and this is something that I think you might find interesting, was Mike McCarthy, what he said. He basically said that if you want your defense to be the thermostat, you want your defense to be the thermostat because the thermostat really regulates the game.
Right.
And it's true to be told that the defense, they're the thermostat of this Dallas Cowboys team.
They are.
Without
a doubt.
And so when you look at this Rams thing, there's a lot of difference there. When you look at Matthew Stafford has a 75 passer rating if he's not targeting anyone outside of Cooper Rush. Last year was a little over 94%.
Right.
Stafford's had 2 games over 7 sacks, about at least 7 sacks. I think they're leading the league right now. And now, what did they lose? Andrew Whitworth for the left tackle. And then if you look at it in terms of what they've done, 31st in terms of pressure. And that's with an Aaron Donald-led defense. Right. Because you know who they're missing, right? Mr. Von Miller. Yeah. And you look at this Rams team, it's just different.
That's a big loss.
So I think the only way that, honestly, the Rams are able to win this game, it goes down to coaching.
I mean, the coaching, the Rams got to do something. I don't see McVay, stepping into this thing and losing like he did to the 49ers. Mm-hmm. He's got to have an answer. I think this is a game where Allen Robinson gets. I think this is going to be a come out game for Robinson. I really do. They've got to figure out a way to get him the ball. They've got to figure out a way to get him the football. Mm-hmm. You've got to take some of that pressure off for Cooper Kupp. It's going to be interesting how they line up Diggs and everything else because I think he's the best cornerback in the National Football League, and we're about to see Jalen Ramsey and Diggs on not on the field together, but we're going to see who's going to nut up and who's not. Mm-hmm. So I mean, Diggs to me is cornerback 1. Ramsey is 2 or 3, but they've got to stay. They're going to have to double move him. They're going to have to attack him. They can't let him get. If you let that joker get comfortable, he's really freaking good. Mm-hmm. So Allen Robinson has got to get going. I think McVay is going to be intentional about getting some plays specifically for him to kind of let him his game come to him. To and to be quite honest with you, they're going to have to force Allen Robinson because you can't keep feeding Cooper Kupp 14 balls a game. I mean, you can, but it's long term. It's not good for him. You need him. So I think the Rams. I think the Rams come out on top in this game. Matthew Stafford has got to play better. Mm-hmm. He's got to play better. Throwing the ball, can't be missing wide open guys. Can't be forcing things. all this bull crap, no look bull crap, man. Hey, you better get rid of that.
You gotta stop that.
You better say, hey, because it ain't working for him right now. And right now, he needs to get back to the basic. If you're gonna move people with your eyes, move with your eyes, but you need to be looking at who you're throwing it to. You ain't Mahomes.
Talk about, let's transfer from one quarterback that's actually struggling to another one that's just been balling out this year. That's Jalen Hurts and the Eagles. We'll head out to Arizona. Going to Arizona, baby. Taking an undefeated record into Glendale. Going against the Arizona Cardinals, who are lost their last 7 games at home. It feels like a trap game. Right. It really feels like a trap game because you know who the Eagles got right after this? The Cowboys. And you look in terms of what this team's able to do, they don't have anyone. They look like Look, I'm going to say this right now. Kyler Murray, you miss your boy DeAndre Hopkins. He misses Hopkins.
I mean, yeah.
But that
was DeAndre's fault. He got to make better choices.
And I agree with you on that. And look, the Cardinals might be 2-2. And they got their first lead last week in regulation in the fourth quarter.
Right.
And if you look at this defensive side of the Arizona Cardinals, they have some talent there. You got Isaiah Simmons, you got Budda Baker, J.J. Watt's a future Hall of Famer. The thing about this Arizona Cardinals team, they can be awful or they can be brilliant, and that's because of one person. It's Kyler Murray. Murray. What, you don't think so?
I mean, Kyler Murray, I think he's a good player. I think he lacks a lot. Like he's limited in what he can do. I think he's a baller. I really do. I think he's a baller. I look at this football team, questionable with Rondale Moore. They're going to have to. I don't see this happening for them. I think the Eagles go 5-0. I had somebody on Twitter. He wanted to bet me, I think $500 or something like that.
Should have taken it.
I know, right? He wanted to bet $500 that the Cardinals were going to win. Look, I wouldn't be surprised if the Cardinals won, but I look at this football game, and Jalen Hurts is playing really good ball. I understand, like, in the National Football League, you're not going to keep balling like this. Mm-hmm. Throwing crazy touchdowns, throwing big chunk plays all day, every day. The offensive coordinator is doing a phenomenal job. Jalen Hurts is taking advantage of the talent that they've placed around him. The game has slowed. You can just see the game has slowed down for him a lot. And he's one step ahead. And you could just he's playing like that. And, he's a kid who I'm completely surprised with his turnaround. So, I think it's going to be a good game. But I just don't see it. I don't see it. This defense, I really like this Eagles defense.
Can I ask you this? We hear the talk about trap games.
Right.
You being a former player, is that a true statement? Do you ever overlook a team looking for a head-up matchup, like, for example, the Cowboys and the Eagles are set to see one another the following week, and you kind of overlook the Cardinals because you're not really focused on the Cardinals because much like you feel like, oh, we're going to go 5-0. Is that really a thing? Is that a true sentiment in the locker room that you overlook a team?
Some teams will overlook a team, and you'll see they'll get the piss beat out of them. But as I've said before, like, these guys are pros and they get paid too. So, I don't see this football team overlooking anybody. Mm-hmm. This is a team that's hungry. I truly believe this Philadelphia team is hungry. You got players, on their Cox, a defensive lineman on their team, mm-hmm. Graham. These boys want to play ball. Mm-hmm. They Graham and them have tasted. I've actually got a chance to. Me and Graham talked to each other at a race, at a NASCAR race, and it was just a lot of fun to be able to kind of just me and him just talk to pick each other's brain, man, and just talk about ball and everything else. But that cat's still hungry. When you win a Super Bowl, and when I won a Super Bowl with Baltimore. And I left Baltimore to come, when I got cut from Baltimore to come to Tennessee, I was hungry until I got in that locker room with Tennessee. And I was just like, dang, these jokers suck. This team is terrible. Ain't no way we going to the Super Bowl. And I don't say that to be a dickhead, but doggone. Like, I'm just looking at what we were doing. Just a lot of stuff was not in place. I remember walking in a meeting room, and we had a coach with a cigar and scotch. I'm like, bruh, and didn't know nothing, didn't teach his group anything. And I'm just like, yo, bro, you gonna teach them boys anything? He's like, nah, BP, you got it. You can teach them. I'm like, and he was dead serious. Dead. He was the head coach's friend. Head coach's friend who coached high school football, who they were so tight, he brought him in to be one of the position coaches. And I mean, like, after I got in the locker room, I remember telling my wife, I was like, babe, I go, this is terrible. I go, babe, how? And the whole way that ended up with me being here in Tennessee, obviously God had a plan. I thank God for his plan, but at the same time, I'm like, God, why your plan? You know what I mean? But it's just one of those things where I look at this Philly team, you got guys on this team that's hungry, that want to get back to that promised land. Jalen Hurts is playing really good football. They put the pieces around him. I do not see, and they're going to lose at some point, maybe multiple games. I don't see a team going undefeated, right? Because the injury bug is hitting everybody. So, and that's on the backups to be ready to go because it's next man up. But I look at this team and I don't, man. I mean, Hurts, A.J. Brown, Miles Sanders, Smith. I mean, these jokers are good. They're good. They're good. I do not see them overlooking this. This is a 2-2 football team. You overlooking a 2-2 football team? I can see it 0-4, but this is a 2-2 football team who can stretch the football field. If you give them life, the running game can come to life. This quarterback, you let him. He's shown us he can run around and extend plays. So you got to get him on the ground. So you can't overlook this football team at all. They better not. Yeah,
I just always wondered if that was a true statement, but I think I think it's gonna be an interesting game to watch. But let's talk about the interesting game. For me, that is. It's a big game for both teams.
Yes, sir.
You know what I'm talking about. Shall I say it? You know I will. The Ravens, Bengals. Ravens coming off 2 home losses, while the Bengals are looking to take the lead in the AFC North.
Yeah.
And it seems like now, guess what? The Bengals are starting to find its footing. The confidence is starting to rise a little bit.
Yeah.
The new look offense looks like it's improving each week. Joe Burrow finding confidence in that pocket.
Right.
And it looks like on the defensive side, they're starting to pick up things a little bit. And I'm thinking like, oh, I can't wait for this game. Because rookie corner Cam Taylor-Britt came out and said that he watched a lot of Lamar during his high school season, or his college season, if you will, college senior season, if you will. And he says that he's a real good quarterback, which he is. He's in the NFL for a reason.
Right.
He's a true athlete. You've got to give him that because he's like a merited character. When you look at Lamar Jackson playing at the MVP level, he's a 1-on-1 at his position. He's 1 of 1 at his position, hands down. Guy could throw a ball, but also was able to run the ball. I mean, true dual threat quarterback, right? And you can't put what's happened to him in the last 2 losses on him. I don't. I know you don't. It's just that defensive side. I am terrified because now you got Chase, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and squad going against that second. I just think that Joe Burrow is going to eat. And I feel bad because I think that it's going to be on Lamar's shoulders, and I feel like that's going to be just too much for Lamar to take on.
The same thing you just said, you think it's going to be on Lamar's shoulders, is the reason why I say, as far as when we look at the success of this football team, the longevity of the football team, especially the way it's made up offensively, right? Like, and we can say the same thing defensively, the way it's made up.
Sure.
Now, offensively, and once again, for everybody out there who continues to think that I hate Lamar and this and that, I don't hate Lamar.
He doesn't hate Lamar.
I don't hate Lamar.
But he keeps the same energy.
Right. Like, so when I look at this football team, everybody wants to talk about the Baltimore Ravens defense. And last game, once again, the offense didn't score anything the second half. When I look at this football team, when we say everything is on Lamar's shoulders, like I look at that and I go, freaking A, like that's tough. And I get it. He's a professional athlete. He should be able to handle that. But we can't have our quarterback, the leading passer, we can't have our quarterback who is the leading passer to help us win games by passing the football, the leading rusher. Like, this whole thing is designed around Lamar. And as we've seen, and I get it, last game was a rain game and things of that nature. So, you know, it was impossible to put up crazy numbers simply because the ball's wet, the ground's wet, the surface, all this other stuff. But I look
it's elements, though. That's the elements.
We can't pick that. But so I look at it and I go, it's all on his shoulders. He's going to run himself and he's going to get exhausted because he's doing it all the time. And when you got 17 games, he's doing it all the time. And as when the competition kicks up, guess what, Lamar got to kick up. So as a human, he ain't Superman. He is going to get tired. So when everybody's going, well, wait a minute, what's happening for postseason? This is what's happening for postseason. He left it all on the field during regular season. Now, let me go to the defense. Everybody's talking about, well, the Baltimore Ravens defense ain't good. They're not good. This is a trash defense. They this, they're that. Well, wait. A year, 2 years, 3 years ago, everybody, oh man, the Baltimore Ravens, way banging. Wink, Martindale calling plays, which Wink, I love Wink. He's Wink, I love him. But, you know, what everybody got to understand, when you take a defense like this that have been zero blitz, we all know Baltimore was blitzing the quarterback. They had more pressures than anybody in the National Football League, blitzing the quarterback, doing all of that stuff. When you do that for multiple years straight, that thing wears on the bodies of those players. What did we just talk about with the Detroit Lions? When you playing zero coverage with 65 yards behind you, now the Detroit Lions roster make up the play. They're not getting the same play that the Ravens are getting because the players, you know, aren't that good. Baltimore do a really good job as far as drafting and bringing in guys free agency wise, as far as filling in pieces. But that defense is fatigued from all that zero blitzing, from all that fire zone blitzing, putting pressure on the quarterback. I mean, look at it. Injuries have happened to both corners. Injuries to the safety. Injuries to the linebacker unit. Injuries to the D-line unit. Injuries. What's happening with the running backs? Injuries. What's happening with Lamar? And we can't pick them. When we put our body through something, injuries come because we're stressing it. So when I look at this defense, it's not that the defense is bad. They're still a good unit, but they're beat up. They are. They're beat up. The Baltimore Ravens defense is beat up from what they've done in the past. You're never 100%. These boys ain't 100%. Nobody's 100%. Especially when you put on pass start, you're never going to be 100%. When players say, I'm just trying to get back to 100%, all right, that sounds good. You're never going to be 100%. The Baltimore Ravens defense, as far as last game, everybody blamed the defense. You can't stop a high-power offense like the Buffalo Bills, who probably got the league's MVP now.
They blame the defense, or do they blame the coach?
People blame the defense for being bad, but then they also question the coach, which he hides behind analytics. He hides behind it. That's the only time we hear Harbaugh is making a decision is to go for it on fourth down. Mm-hmm. I mean, you got the league's best kicker at your disposal, and you kept him on the sideline. As I've said before, when a defense goes out on the football field knowing and understanding that the offense got to score something, 3 or 7, the offense plays different. The defense plays different. Mm-hmm. But when the defense go on the football field knowing and understanding that we ain't got nothing, it's a tie game, we gave them everything we had, we didn't get anything out of it, now they coming down the football field, they ain't got nothing to lose. They got to almost play perfect football. And there's no such thing as perfect football. Because once again, the Baltimore Ravens came out that half last week and 3 terrible plays. Gave the ball back to the offense. Mm-hmm. So, it's just one of those things where this is going to be a good football game. I said all that to say this. This is going to be a good football game. The Baltimore Ravens defense, they're going to get checked. They're going to have to figure out and understand Humphreys, Peters, all them boys going to have to play ball. Mm-hmm. They're going to have to understand that, you know what? People have been dogging us. They've been saying whatever about us. They got to play ball. Josh Bynes, he was there in Baltimore when I was in Baltimore. Josh Bynes is a freaking animal. I love him. Everybody dogging out the defense, saying this, saying that. They're gonna get pressure. They haven't put the pressure on people like they have. When people watch Baltimore Ravens defense, they look like, where the pressure at? You can't keep putting them in that situation. But they've got to turn up the heat a little bit defensively. They got to turn up the heat offensively. If they're scoring a lot in the first half, they got to come out with that same energy in the second. Mm-hmm. You cannot have a goose egg in the second half, especially with this Bengals offense. But I think too, when you look at this Bengals offense, it's some question marks there with this offense. So they're gonna have to blitz them. Mm-hmm. That offensive line ain't holding up. Joe Burrow's getting hit a lot, but at the same time, you got to understand too, we're not holding up in the secondary. So we're gonna have to do some stuff. So if that means we got to pick and choose in situations when to blitz and when not to blitz, but our playmakers got to make plays. Guys got to make plays. They've got to do what they got to do. I mean, you're gonna miss Bateman. Bateman out. Hill out. You know what I mean? Like you've got to do some stuff in this football game where Lamar is going to have to put it on his back. Mm-hmm. But once again, when they lose, you can't look to blame everybody else, because look, Lamar's the quarterback for a reason. Lamar asking for over I believe over $250 million for a reason. And he deserves it. But at the same time, when it ain't happening, you got to figure out who to point that. Head coach, you need to point that finger. Because he don't know offensively or defensively.
Yeah, I believe it's going to be a great game. Yeah. Let's transition, because as we try to wrap up this podcast, let's talk about, I think, going from one divisional rival game to another, and that's the Raiders versus the Kansas City Chiefs. Monday Night Football. These two teams clash against one another. Patrick Mahomes, still the GOAT, still reign dominance in that AFC West division. I think he's like 22-3 since he's been drafted and started on that Kansas City team. But it seems like the Raiders last week kind of got going a little bit. Seems like Josh McDaniels wanted to kind of emphasize the run game, get it started early, and it seems like it was one of the better games against that Broncos team. Was able to put up 30 points, get a win last week. Right. Now they get possibly the best team in the NFL in the Kansas City Chiefs. I think so. I'm still not a full believer of the Eagles just as of yet, even though they've got an undefeated record, because they haven't played anyone. Wait until they've really played. I'm not even counting Minnesota in that. But I like what Philadelphia's doing, but I feel like right now Kansas City is the number one team in the NFL. And why am I can't say that they also rank second in terms of, not second, but they've sixth in terms of rushing touchdowns allowed. I mean, that Steve Spagnuolo defense, which I talked about last week, or I don't know, was it Tuesday, about how I felt like their defense is actually a lot better this year than last year. And we all know that a good defense is a good offense, and we've seen what the Chiefs are doing. They're okay with Tyreek Hill not being there after just taking down the number one defense last week against the Bucs. Like, it's just crazy. Again, matching Mahomes, I can't. I was gonna fade him this year. I'm a dunce cap. Sorry, Patrick. Dude, you that dude. You one of one, my man.
Yeah, it's. Look, I don't trust this Raiders team, defense. The head coach. It's hard when you're playing against a Mahomes. It's hard when you're playing against a Coach Reed that's going to put Mahomes in really good situations. The play designs, the play calls. That's tough. I look at this. I look at this game, Ray, and
you put a smile on your face. You're like, it's going to be a long day.
I look at this, man, and I think the Raiders won their game. The Raiders are going to put up a fight. I will not be surprised if the Raiders win this game. Matter of fact. I'm calling for the Raiders to win this game. I'm putting it out there right now.
Which is surprising to hear from you, because you've not been a believer of this. Not the Raiders, but Josh McDaniels.
Josh McDaniels, yes.
That is That is the fine line there.
Yeah. I'm calling for the Raiders to win this game. I think Derek Carr
In Arrowhead.
at Arrowhead. Yeah, I truly they go in and upset him. I think Carr plays. I want Carr to play lights out. I think Adams continuing to feed that guy. I think they get Winfrey back. Hunter Winfrey.
I heard, and I know that if Hunter Renfro's coming back, you know who's going to be excited about that one.
Right.
That's right, his boy, Derek Carr, because that's his guy. That's his safety valve. That's his safe call. That's his safe call. Yeah, that's what it is. 100 receptions last year. I do like that Derek Carr is going to possibly.
I think he's about Waller.
Yeah. It's been up and down. Up and down.
Hey,
they've got the offensive weapons to be a threat. I mean,
yes.
And we're not only talking about the Raiders; we're talking about the entire AFC West.
Right.
There's a ton of money that's been plugged into that entire division, and it just seems like they've just not met expectations with all the hype that came in this offseason. Like, the AFC West, all 4 teams are going to the Super Bowl, or they have a chance to go to the Super Bowl.
Right.
Can they know now? Who knows? But
I think the Raiders win. I do. I mean, and I know we about to roll, but at the same time, Waller's got to be ready to outplay Kelsey. He's got to get ready to outplay Kelsey because Kelsey is straight up balling. Mahomes is balling. I think this is going to be a really, really good game. I say the Raiders. They leave Arrowhead with a W.
There you have it. BP's calling the upset. Raiders taking down Kansas City Monday Night Football. That's it, my friend. Week 5 preview. We got in the books. We'll wrap this up. We'll possibly try to get together next week. I'll be out of town next week, but we'll probably do something like maybe some Twitter space or something, whatever. But until next time, like I said, come check us out.
Peace.
I'm Ray Dosky. That's BP, in my opinion.